All right, so in the new studio, which way do I need to go? This way. All right. Okay, so we're in the new studio again for the second time, the new house. And today we're going to be talking about how to become an ascended master, and specifically the two ways that we become ascended masters. So, first off, before we get into that, what is an ascended master? I'm trying to adjust the volume because it sounds really echoey in here, so I don't know what I'm going to have to do about that, but anyway. What is an ascended master? So, an ascended master is a human being who has either through multiple lifetimes of wisdom gained through life experience or through achieving a higher state of awareness through an energetic shift, either through spiritual discipline or something like that. This individual has achieved a state of fulfillment within themselves to the degree that they no longer need to become incarnated as human beings. So this is a very important thing to understand. If you're new to the channel, then let me tell you what it is that I teach. That is that there is no such thing as a forced reincarnation. Karma is nothing more than the consequences of actions, any more than dropping rock in a water creates ripples. It's just the direct response to an action. It's not evil, it's not wrong. You're never punished. Becoming a reincarnated human being is a result of a choice that the soul makes and no other reason. And the reason why the soul chooses to reincarnate is not because it needs to learn a lesson or it needs to punish itself or anything like that. The reason why the soul incarnates is because it wants to experience fulfillment of desires. It's the only reason. And so the idea is that when your vibration level gets to a high enough awareness, where you have enough self-awareness, you become fulfilled. Your desires become fulfilled. So, if you're listening to me right now and you are experiencing a lot of pain in your life, if you are experiencing a desire to escape, you want to be done, you don't want to reincarnate, life is horrible and painful and full of sadness and misery, what it means is that you have unfulfilled desires or expectations. That's not a judgment, it's a fact. I'm in the physical body as well. So if I were to judge you for being incarnated, then I would have to judge myself. And I don't like judging myself. I like who I am and I like what I'm doing. And I have adopted the philosophy that this life is about fulfilling my deepest desires. And that's the main and most important and most profound thing that I can accomplish, is to achieve that. So I also believe that for you. And so that is why the soul incarnates. But when we don't get what we want, we get reactive. We get angry, we get sad, we get all kinds of other negative emotions. So if you are having a bunch of negative emotions, I'm not trying to minimize them. It is simply because you are not getting either what you want or what you think you want. That's it. That's the whole philosophy behind Buddhism. Buddhism at its core, forget all the other religious stuff that's been thrown into it. Buddhism at its core was the understanding that attachment causes misery. And if you don't want to be miserable, then you have to release attachments. So that's for me, that's kind of a weak way of doing it, because that implies all kinds of self-denial and not necessarily the way it was meant, but that's what people do with it. They turn it into I'm a good person because I've gotten rid of all attachments and desires, and that just keeps you trapped in it, and you're denying. You're in denial. So we do have to get to that state of being without attachment and without desire towards anything in the physical realm in order to become an ascended master, in order to escape reincarnation, if you want to look at it that way. But the only way to really do that is to become fulfilled. When you become truly fulfilled, then your soul will not want to reincarnate. That's how it works. So, everybody listening to me is destined to become an ascended master. It's not a question of if you're going to become an ascended master. It's a question of when. When are you going to become an ascended master? And that is going to be determined on how you play this game of living the incarnated human life. So let me address some ideas about what life is. Now, it's really popular now for people to refer to human life as the matrix. And there is even a belief, people really honestly, truly believe, that they live in a computer program and they're trying to escape it in the same way that Neo escaped in the movie The Matrix. By the way, bear in mind, Neo didn't escape the Matrix, he mastered it. He went back in and he mastered it. So that is one way of looking at it, but that is a modern view. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying that's a modern twist on it. And the reason why we believe that is because we have at least 2 generations of people who have been coming out of the womb living through electronic devices. So for them, the universe really is a computer program because they truly live in it. They live in a computer program. And so, everything is a projection, so they project that onto their world. And by the way, that is to live through the internet is an incredibly isolating way to live. That's why there's chronic loneliness. That is why you've got kids with automatic rifles going into schools and shooting things up. When I was a kid, kids had problems, but we didn't see this kind of desperation and like we do now. And it's because when I was a kid, way back in the 60s and 70s, we didn't live in. If you wanted to make a phone call, you had to pick up something that was on the wall or plugged into the wall, and you had to dial. You had to stick your finger in a hole and dial the thing, and then you had to wait. And if somebody was there, they'd pick up the phone, and then you had to ask, "Is so and so there?" And they'd say yes or no. And if they weren't there, then you'd say, "Can you leave a message?" There wasn't even message machines when I was a kid. So if you wanted to see somebody, you had to go to their house. You had to get out of your couch and you had to walk down the street to go see somebody. If you wanted to go learn something from somebody, you had to either walk or take a bus or have somebody drive you to a physical location. You had to look somebody in the eye and talk to them. And there was always an energetic exchange with people, which you cannot have through the internet. You can't have it. And that's why we have so many people who are so isolated and so alone. And it's not just people who have been born that. It's people, older people who also are completely now absorbed in the internet. So this idea of living in a computer program is nothing new. What the ancients called it was Maya or illusion. And it was the same idea, and people were desperate to escape the illusion, to escape reincarnation, to escape the misery. This has been going on for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So I'm sitting here telling you that trying to make yourself miserable by, being righteous or being spiritual or being loving or being whatever it is the popular thing to do in whatever religious trend is going on, is not going to get you out of the cycle of reincarnation. What's going to get you out of the cycle of reincarnation is to fulfill every desire you have. The problem is figuring out what your true desires are, because that's the challenge. The whole reason the soul incarnates is to give itself the challenge of trying to figure out what it is that the soul truly wants, or what is it that's going to keep you safe. The money, the acceptance of society, of your family, of your religion, all that kind of stuff. Anything based out of fear, which is wanting to be accepted, wanting to be a good person, wanting to be powerful and rich, these are all coming from fear. And what ends up happening is that as we are programmed, we are programmed to be good people, and the way that you keep control over society is to give moral, and morals can be, being a tough guy or not being a pussy or being cool or being spiritual. Those are all the same ways of keeping people under control. And if you are living your life in order to meet that, whether it is to be a tough guy, to be nice, to be liked, to be spiritual, if you're living your life for those reasons, you are living in fear, and you are not fulfilling your own desires, which means that you are going to create a karma, which is just simply the response of your actions. The karma is that you will have unfulfilled desires. Those unfulfilled desires are going to drive you to come back into this physical existence. And you will make that choice. It won't happen, nobody's going to do it to you. You won't die and then go through something and then wake up again as a baby. It doesn't work like that. In between lives, your soul looks at things and it makes decisions, and your soul will decide, yeah, I really want to get there. It was so much fun, and I missed out on all kinds of really fun things, and I want to go back and do it. So that's a long way of saying that in order to fulfill your desires, in order to escape reincarnation and become a fully enlightened, ascended master, you have to achieve all of your desires. That's what I'm trying to say. And it sounds easier than it is. Because as I said, you have to determine what you think you want as opposed to what you truly want. And we've talked a lot about that. So there are two main ways to become an ascended master. And let's see, I've got a bunch of audio-visual stuff here for you. So let's take a look at that. Let's get this off the screen first. And let's take a look. So what are the two ways? Okay, so those are the two ways. Either you do it through thousands of lifetimes of wisdom that is gained through experience, which every time you learn, this is important to know, every time you go through a challenging scenario in your life and you act in fearlessness towards your soul, you go up a notch in vibration. And you keep that unless you take actions to destroy that. You get to keep that. And that is what carries over to the next lifetime. So the next lifetime you're born, you've gained wisdom, your vibration of your soul is going to be at a certain level, and then the idea is to gain higher vibrations through taking fearless actions. And that we learn the hard way. So that's one way, to learn the hard way, the school of hard knocks, through many lifetimes and a bunch of experiences. The second way is to make a decision to take a radical energetic shift, which results in intense self-discovery. Now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not trying to paint an easy picture of this. It is not easy to do that. It is not just be love and light and happy all the time and your energy will rise above. I've got nothing against being happy and loving and kind. That is definitely part of it. But if you want to try and convince yourself that you're full of light and love all the time, and you're denying all of your unfulfilled desires and all of your pain and your anger and your sorrow, then all that ends up happening is you're just putting pause, and you're actually making it longer. It's going to take longer. The path of self-discovery, I use the word intense for a reason, because self-discovery is not easy. Self-discovery is very challenging. There's no way to achieve self-discovery without dying to the ideas of who you are, the ideas of what the world is. There's no way to achieve intense self-discovery without having really intense emotional reactions to life. You have to live in your emotions. You can't escape your emotions. You can't escape it through chemicals. I mean, you can, don't get me wrong, you can escape it. But be aware that every time that you escape, you're adding more time. So that's, the way it works. If you want, it's sort of like living on a credit card. You can get a credit card, and if you want to go buy, thousands of dollars worth of stuff on your credit card, you can do that, but you're going to have to pay for that. So if you're in debt and you use a credit card to buy stuff, then you're just going to keep getting in debt. It's like that here too. Every time that you try to avoid and escape, you're adding more debt, because that's what karma is. It's debt. My ancestors, the Norse, had an understanding about time. And time is made up of three forces, which are called the Norns. The Norns are giantesses. They're female entities who are actually forces of nature. They're not beings that you can pray to or interact with. They're beyond human limitations. They're like the forces of physics. And the idea of the Norns was that there was origins, which we experience as the past. There was the ever unfolding immediate present moment. And then there was debt, which is the future. So thousands of years ago, before we have this modern idea of karma, which we took from the Hindu religion, our ancestors, long before Christianity, understood that the future is debt. It means you pay for the actions, not so much the actions like you do something right or do something wrong. It's payment. It's the reaction of the universe to your beliefs, your intentions, your assumptions, your choices, and of course your actions as well. Now, debt can mean that the universe owes you a debt. The universe may owe you a debt which will, give you pleasure or give you joy or raise your vibration, or you will owe a debt to yourself, really, which is that you've got to learn some more, or you got to change and shift your thinking in order to get yourself where you want to go. So it's a school, this life here. Anyway, so let's see. That's the first little thing, the two paths. Let's talk about the first way, which is lifetimes, thousands of lifetimes of knowledge gained through experience. Again, this is the first way to become an ascended master, is through reincarnating thousands of times. So without a big shift in your thinking, you are going to be forced to go through simply trial and error. So understand that this experience that you have now, coming into this life, of feeling like I don't know where I belong, I don't know what the universe is, and the fear of the unknown and the fear of death, this is built into the game that you've created. Understand that your soul has no fear. Your fear is in your human brain, especially in your amygdala, your reptilian brainstem. That's where your fear is. And your physical human body, its brain and everything like that, it isn't eternal, and it doesn't know. It doesn't have any memory of past lives or what it's like to be a spirit. It doesn't have any of that knowledge. So when you live in that physical aspect of yourself, you are going to be full of fear, and you're not going to know where things are going to go. So this experience that you have of, I don't know what life is, I don't know what to believe, life is frightening to me, life is painful, that is something that you designed in the game. Because if you came into the game, meaning physical life, with the knowledge that you are eternal and you are infinite and you're full of bliss, then it wouldn't be any challenge for you. It wouldn't be any fun for the soul, and you wouldn't learn anything. It's like, it's cheating. Understanding that learning from a spiritual perspective is not intellectual knowledge. That's one of the problems we have with our educational system. Our educational system is you go and you intellectually memorize a bunch of facts, and then you go and you take a test, which is to spew out those intellectual facts. It doesn't mean you have any knowledge. It doesn't mean you have any experience. You run into that all the time. People have degrees and all kinds of stuff, but they have zero experience. And experience is what teaches you how to do stuff. So the soul is the same way. So if you're thinking that, why don't I come back? Why don't I remember? Well, you do that on purpose, because if you remembered, then you would just make all the right choices and life wouldn't be any fun. And that's not what the soul wants. The soul wants to learn on a deep, energetic, experiential level. And learning through experience is an energetic thing. I was talking to somebody the other day, which is that, I do a lot of sharing and a lot of teaching, but that is really just to appease your intellect. Once your intellect thinks it knows what's going on, it relaxes. So I'm appealing to your intellect, because what I'm going to do, and you're going to find out when we get to number 2, is what I'm going to tell you is that if you really want to grow, you're going to have to do that through energetic experience, and that can only be done through exercises and ritual and things like that. Reading a ton of books isn't going to give it to you. Listening to channeled information on the internet, you can watch. I kind of like some of the things Bashar says. He says some really cool stuff. But if you watch Bashar, like thousands of hours of Bashar, that's not going to give you experience or awareness. It's just going to give you a bunch of intellectual knowledge and what people call hopium. Well, I'm going to have to talk about that someday, because I saw that. I thought that was really cool. Let me see here. I want to be able to type something in. Hopium. I love that. I thought that was really cool. Hopium, to get high on the idea of being full of hope, but not really getting any deep spiritual knowledge. I would say the same is true for, like Abraham Hicks. There's nothing wrong with what they say, unless, some of the stuff we can't verify anyway. If we start talking about different beings from different galaxies, and we love to do that because it takes us out of our immediate reality and somehow gives us this feeling we're connecting to something, when it's just, who cares? It doesn't matter where people are from. Let me just say that. Some people want to say that, that they've realized that they are from another galaxy or another star constellation, and they're a Pleiadian or a Arcturian or whomever. And so that somehow gives them some feeling of value, which I think is great. Whatever it does that gives you the feeling of value is absolutely essential. But what needs to happen is to be able to take action based on that. If you're full of all this feeling of I'm a star person, but you can't take practical action to make your life better, it's meaningless information. So the point is, regardless of where your soul came from, right now you're from planet Earth, because you're in a human body. And that's where the lessons are, in planet Earth. Lessons are not out there. They're here. So Abraham Hicks and Bashar, I love some of the things Bashar says. If you can put it into action, especially how he talks about shifting timelines, I think that's absolutely brilliant. But a lot of the stuff is just hopium. We're trying to get high and just stay in this idea of hope, but we're not taking any action. So this is, I don't know how I got onto that, but where were we? We were on the first way, right? Let's take a look. The first way again. In the first way, remember there's two ways to become an ascended master. The first way is to have thousands of lifetimes of knowledge and experience. And the other way is to have a rapid energetic shift in your energy body and in your awareness. Most people are going to become ascended masters through the first way, which is through trial and error. In that trial and error, you end up seeing yourself separate from the universe in which you live. You see yourself as a singular identity that's disconnected. Most people feel very alone. That's part of being a human being. That's why we seek out other people. That's why we get into relationships, because that feeling of being connected, gives us, well, it's just part of our nature. We need that. But when you see yourself as this singular individual, then you see the rest of the world as this giant being that controls your existence. And so you're a victim of circumstances. This happened to me, that happened to me, they did this to me, you just made me feel like this, you just did that. So that is part of the first way, which is when you're gaining experience and knowledge through lifetimes of reincarnation, you see yourself as being separate from the rest of the universe. And that can be a pretty challenging and painful place to be. Let's see, what else do we have on the first way? Talked about that already, which is when you see yourself separate, there's a huge amount of feelings of isolation. And as I said earlier, we've got at least 2 generations of people who have spent their entire lives, the moment they come out of the womb, they are using devices in order to connect. And their entire world is based on devices. I've shared this before, I'll share it again. This was 10 or so years ago. People were contacting me wanting to learn spirit fighting, which is an energetic practice, and they wanted to learn through Skype. And I said, you can't do that. And they got very upset with that because they learn everything through the internet, through Skyping, through whatever. And one of the things that's happened, this ease of getting everything through the internet, eBay, Amazon, whatever it is, there's an app for everything. It has increased feelings of entitlement. So remember when I said when I was a little kid, if I wanted to go do something or learn something, I had to get out of the house and ride my skateboard or ride my scooter or ride my bike or walk somewhere to talk to somebody to you don't have to do that now. You just got a device that'll connect you, and then you can instantly have it downloaded on your phone, and you think you have something. And so people have this feeling of entitlement. People would reach out to me and say, I want to learn your martial art through Skype. And I'd say, you have to be here personally to do that, and I can't give that to you. And they'd get very upset about that. People are the same way now. People think that they can achieve enlightenment by reading books, which you can get over the internet. And all kinds of things. But it actually is going to take practical action. You have to do something. You have to actually do something, and there has to be an interchange of energy, which oftentimes means you're going to have to physically connect with somebody in order for that to happen. So feelings of isolation. So this is what you get from the first way, which is what most of us have been doing. If you're talking to me now, you've reincarnated. I've obviously reincarnated. I'm pretty sure I've been here many times. So I'm no different than anybody else. I've taken the first way, but there is a second way. The second way to become an ascended master is through rapid energetic shift. And I'll share some stories with you from multiple traditions, which you can decide whether or not it's true. From the teachers that I learned from, they talked about the masters through doing all kinds of things, intense ritual, intense energy work, meditation, shifting of the mind, shifting of the awareness, opening of the centers, doing a lot of physical, energetic work in order to shift the dynamics of the energy body, they would actually physically die, to the point where you buried them. You put them in a coffin and buried them. And sometimes they'd go back and check on them, and I don't know how long it was, but we're talking, like 40 days or something like that. Long period of time where the body is buried. And they go and check to see if the body is rotting away. Yep, that person's still dead. And then at some point, they check and the coffin is empty and the person is walking around. So this is an example of an energetic shift. Now, their whole focus, these are the left-hand Taoist sorcerers, their whole focus is to become a perfected immortal, which is a lot different from the idea of becoming saved, which we have in religion. It's to perfect yourself energetically so that you don't have to come back and reincarnate. And then you become immortal in the personality that you have now. So that's one idea. You've seen I'm sure you've seen other representations of that in other religions and other traditions. Whether or not you choose to believe that is up to you. I can't prove to you one way or another whether that is true, but I absolutely believe wholeheartedly through my own experience that when you shift energetically, you actually do shift the realms that you can live in, the realms that you can experience. And the last step before shifting completely out of this world into another existence is to be able to intend your reality so that your external reality simply shifts as a result of your intention, as opposed to being a victim of circumstance where everything is happening to you and you have to go through all this challenge and misery and all that. And again, if we go back to remember, the idea of reincarnation is centered around the need to fulfill desires. So if you get to the place where you can intend your reality, you're obviously going to fulfill all of your desires, in which case you will have no need to come back. You will have mastered this game. Now, a lot of people are listening to me and they think about intending their desires and they're imagining that they're going to intend a giant mansion or 65 Rolls Royces or 25 naked supermodels, and have infinite powers to blow things up with their fingertips and all that. Well, along the way, as you learn to intend your reality, you start to find out what it is that really gives you joy and what doesn't. And you start to realize that a lot of the things you think you wanted, you don't want. They don't give you any happiness. So when you get to that point where somebody has the ability to intend their reality, you start to see that what they're intending looks really kind of, gosh, if I could intend my reality, I'd do something a whole lot different than that. That looks pretty normal. Because you find out what really gives you happiness is not the big stuff, it's the little stuff. In any case. And again, we go back, these two ways, the first way and the second way, are really the same thing. So it's either you're going to learn through thousands of lifetimes of repeated experience, you're going to get wisdom through that way, or you are going to intensify your awareness in this lifetime, and that will bring an increased wisdom a lot faster. But you're going, the two ways to look at it. Let's say you've got 1,000 lifetimes, which gives you a certain amount of wisdom, which then achieves all your desires, and poof, you're now an ascended immortal. Or you have an intensified experience of self-awareness where you go through all of that knowledge of letting go of things that don't work for you, letting go of your ego, dying to yourself, And this is not an easy process. So if you're saying to yourself as you're listening to me, well, gosh, I want the second way, I don't want to keep coming back. Well, then what's going to end up happening is you are going to have a more intense death experience, a more intense transformation within one lifetime. Because to get the kind of power that I'm talking about, where guys can go and die and resurrect themselves, to get that kind of power, you have to understand you have to become nothing. Becoming nothing is not easy. Becoming nothing means dying to all of the things you think you want and the things that you think you need. It's extremely painful and frightening. And we normally do that in tiny increments throughout thousands of lifetimes. It's a lot easier. So if you want to do it in this lifetime, it means that you're going to have to experience some very intense, emotionally challenging things in a very short period of time. So the other good news is that those of you who are the ones who want to escape the most, those of you who are on the deepest pain, whose lives are so challenging and you really can't stand it, there is a good chance that as the soul, you said, you know what, I want to speed up the process. So let's make this life even more challenging so I'll be forced to let go of all the things that I think will make me happy. Pain is a great teacher. Pain teaches you what doesn't work. If you burn your thumb on a stove, there's a pretty good chance you're not going to do that again because the pain is bad. We don't like pain. So pain is here to teach us that, emotional pain. So those are the two paths. Now let's take a look at some of the things that let me see, what do I have here? What is this first one? Internal. Let's take a look at let's take a look at the internal tools that are available to you in order to help achieve this. Examine your assumptions. So some of you are hearing me say the same thing over and over again. That's because it takes repetition to really master things and to put them into action. So you need to examine your assumptions. So what are assumptions? Assumptions are the base beliefs. Everything you believe about the world is based on assumption. For instance, I have an assumption that gravity is holding me on the ground, and that if I go and step off a cliff, my assumption is that I will fall to my death. Okay, now I could go out and try and prove that, but I have enough experience with falling off of chairs and other things that gravity is there, and so my assumption is probably true. Now, if I have a false assumption and I believe that if I step off a cliff that I will be able to float, that is probably an incorrect assumption. So that means that every decision and every conclusion that I make after that fact, based on my misunderstanding of gravity, is probably going to be more incorrect assumptions. So you have to examine your assumptions. Do you believe you are a victim of circumstances? Do you believe that the world is out to get you? Do you believe that you are sinful? And many of these assumptions are on an unconscious level, which means you are not aware of them. Let me see, do I have the three minds here? I hope I have those here. I may have gotten rid of them. Yeah, I don't see them here. So we have three minds. We have the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the unconscious mind. The conscious mind is what I'm talking to you through my conscious mind. My subconscious mind is where I hold things like my address, my phone number, my social security number, things I don't need to remember every single second, but when I need them, they're right there. But it is also the lens through which I intend my reality. My unconscious mind is all of my assumptions that had been programmed into me or that I have chosen to adopt. And those create the base awareness that I have that I'm not aware of. It's called unconscious for a reason. Most of your assumptions are in the unconscious level. So that makes it challenging because you have to become conscious of your assumptions in order to shift them, to let go of them. That takes an energetic shift in and of itself. The fastest and easiest way, easiest isn't the right word, the fastest and simplest way to shift your vibration, you can do this right now, is to assume total responsibility for your existence. Total and complete responsibility for everything. Everything. That means everything that you like and everything that you don't like. And the thing is, we're not aware of the things we do like. You know, I mean, we could go through a list of all the things, you know, like listen to old people. Old people are grateful for having regular bowel movements. They're grateful for waking up without any pain. They're grateful for being able to walk. They're grateful, you know, all the things that most of us take for granted. But take responsibility for that, all of the positive things that you have. And then take responsibility for all the things that you don't like, all the things that you complain about. See, you can't complain and take responsibility at the same time. If you are complaining about something, it means that you think that somebody did it to you unfairly and that you're a victim. But if you take full responsibility for everything, meaning that you've created it, either in a past life or in this life, or unconsciously you are creating it. Whatever it is, you created it. If you are able to assume total responsibility for your existence, that in and of itself will shift you. Because you're either seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances, you are a limited being in this omnipotent universe that's doing things to you, or you yourself are the omnipotent one and you are creating everything in your existence. And when you put yourself in that position, that you are creating everything, then yes, you run into the situation of, okay, if I'm creating this, how come I can't stop it? How come I can't change it? And that is the self-discovery. And that is where the work is. The question isn't, why is this happening to me? That means nothing. The question is, what can I do to change it? And if you don't know, that's okay. That's part of the way the game is set up. But if you're able to shift your assumption into taking full responsibility, that will begin a momentous shift in your energy body. And it will give you the ability to do the high-level exercises that I teach. So, all right, let's continue. You have to experience all of your feelings. I'm sorry, but it's true. There is no escape. That doesn't mean that you can't change your reactions. It does not mean that you cannot gain an ability to limit how intensely you emotionally respond to things. That comes with practice and with time. The more that you accept responsibility for your existence, the easier it is to then shift how intensely you respond to your reality. By the way, I hope my air conditioner isn't interfering with your ability to hear me, but I'll find that out through experience. Okay, so having all of your feelings means exactly that. So again, anything that takes you out of your feelings is incurring debt. Remember, anytime that you escape your feelings, you're running up a bill on your spiritual credit card. You are going to have to pay that back. Going out and getting shit-faced, going out and getting drunk, it may be fun, but you are going to have to pay back for that, for checking out on yourself. Any other kind of chemical, recreational chemical. But it can be anything. It can be indulging in Netflix, in porn, in sex, in violence, anger, feeling like a victim. All of these are ways that we use to avoid our feelings. And those are things that keep us from shifting. So in order to shift, you have to have all of your feelings. Now, what most of us don't know how to do is to have all of our feelings and not act on them. Most of us, we are slaves to our responses to our feelings. We have a feeling, we have to do something about it. And so you have to learn how to have all of your feelings and not take action on the ones that aren't going to be helpful, which means you have to be consciously aware to know, okay, I'm having this feeling. Is this action going to be helpful to me or not? And that, again, is something that comes through experience. But the more that you're able to sit with your feelings and have them without having to change them, without indulging in them or reacting to them, the more that you're able to do that, the faster your energy will shift and the closer you will get to becoming an ascended immortal. All right, what else do we got? Okay, so I already mentioned that. I just started talking about taking conscious action. So taking conscious action means that, again, you have a feeling, and instead of just reacting to it like you normally would, you go, okay, let me take action based on conscious awareness of what is going to be constructive for me. That is taking conscious action. Let's see, what was the last one? Okay, this is the toughest one. And for this one, I have a book out there which I recommend that you go read. It's called, it is called The Secret Commandment, The Shamanic Secret Commandment, I think. Such a big title. The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. Go on to my channel and watch those videos. There is a playlist with that title on it, and there are videos based on that. Go watch that. It is also a book. If you want to buy that book, you can go to michaelwilliamdenny.com and you can buy it there. It'll take you directly to Amazon where you can buy it. It is one of the biggest, if not the biggest challenge to having your desires fulfilled is knowing the difference between what your soul wants and what you think you want. Most of the time when people are in conflict and they don't know what they want, or they're having difficulty achieving success or happiness in their life, it's because they're confused about what it is they really want. Because when you're programmed, when your unconscious mind is programmed with assumptions, when your external reality, your parents, your government, your society, your whatever, when all of those forces put pressure to hypnotize you into being part of this matrix, what ends up happening is that you are told what you're supposed to want. And then as you live your life, you bump into a conflict because your soul desire is constantly telling you what it wants. But if you have some moral obligation to be something else and your soul desire says one thing, then you're going to have to make a decision. And if somebody is doing what they think they want, because that's what they've been programmed to want, and your soul desire wants to do something completely different, then you're going to be in conflict. And the tough part is trying to figure out which one is which. And so that book, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life, is one way to learn that. Now, there are people that they do need help. They need somebody to help them dig through that. And that's one of the services that I provide. So if you want my help, you can go to career.thunderwizard.com and get a private session with me. And I can usually, within an hour, I may need to ask some questions and I may need to dig around and kind of chip away at your unconscious assumptions. But usually, within an hour, I can at least narrow down what it is that you truly want. Now, being able to help you get there is a whole other thing, but at least we can get out of the confusion. Because the thing you're going to find out is that if you're in conflict and you find out what it is you truly want, guess what? You're going to be scared to do it, because you're going to have to go against all that programming that's telling you that you're supposed to do something else. And that can be very frightening and very painful. It takes a lot of fearlessness to do that. So those are the internal tools that you have. And let's take a look at the external tools that you have. Okay, so these are tools that I give you. And many of these are free. The whole breath. Look at the spelling on that and go look that up. That is probably the most comprehensive energy practice that I offer for free. You just go onto my channel and type that in. You can probably just go onto YouTube and type that in and it'll come up. Do that. I've said many times on my channel, I've said that there are practices that I give away for free, which would normally, under other circumstances, be things that you would have to pay thousands of dollars and be initiated into a sect. And after so many years of learning blah, 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 you will be initiated and you will be given this very sacred. Now, there's a reason for that. If you go through years and years of training and penance and meditation and showing up and paying a teacher money and blah, 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 after X amount of years of doing that, and you're waiting for that one thing, because the whole time they're telling you, if you do this one thing we're going to give you, you will achieve everything. You get yourself all hyped up and ready, and when you are given it, you do it. And if the teacher says, I want you to do that for 40 minutes a day for the rest of your life, and in 10 years come back and we'll give you another one, you would do it. You would go off and you would spend 10 years doing that for hours every day. That is one of those exercises. I'm telling you that it comes directly from the Ascended Masters. It is the base thing. If you want to call yourself a Thunder Wizard and you want to be initiated into a lineage, which means that you have a connection to ascended beings that work through you and teach you and empower you, that will do it. You know, it's frustrating when people accuse me of being selfish or materialistic or whatever, because I charge for some of my services. And people who do that are not, that's a good, there's a good example of assumptions right there. If somebody has an assumption that, everything is expensive and nobody gives things away, they hide everything from us, and if somebody is complaining about teachers, being not helping people and charging money, that's a perfect example, because those people come onto my channel, they don't look at the 400 plus free videos, some of which are these completely, totally life transforming high-level energy work, and all they see one thing. They see me say, if you want this, it costs this amount of money. And they go, oh, see? There's an example of an assumption right there. Your assumptions blind you to what's right in front of you. So go do that. That is, if you do just that, okay? If you want to turn the video off now and just click stop and go do that for an hour a day for the rest of your life, I can promise you that your whole life will change. In fact, if you do that, I challenge you, do that for an hour a day for 6 months. I challenge you to go do that an hour a day for 6 months, and then if your life hasn't completely changed, come back and tell us about it. Now, you're going to find, though, that it takes discipline. All of these things I'm giving you take discipline. Discipline means not only doing something a lot, it means doing something when everything in you is telling you not to do it. When your whole body is saying, stop, stop, let's go do something else, let's go eat some ice cream or watch Netflix or whatever, and you keep doing it anyway. That's more important than anything else. And I can't give you that. I can't give you discipline. Only you can give yourself discipline. Anyway, but there's the first physical thing you can do, which is the whole breath. And I won't even tell you all the benefits of it. Just go do it and you'll find out for yourself. Okay, so the second tool I want to share with you is the thunder wheel. What is a thunder wheel, you ask? This is a thunder wheel. It's the 8 directions. It's the 4 cardinal directions plus the 4 intermediate directions. Why is that important? Because we live in a magnetically, I don't even know if I'm saying this right in terms of a scientific perspective, but I'll do the best I can. We live in a magnetically charged universe. There's a reason why people face certain directions in certain cultures. Now, sometimes these directions are arbitrary. For instance, some of these so-called Native American, I don't even know what they call it. What do they call those things? Medicine wheel. You can go pick up a book in any bookstore. You can find tons of books on the medicine wheel. Native American Shamanism medicine wheel. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't actually Native American medicine wheels. I'm saying that the majority of the information that you get is not authentic. It's not coming from a real tradition. And you'll find that they have, if you pick up 2 different books, they're going to say 2 different things about what the color is and what each direction represents and all that kind of stuff. So that just means that that's arbitrary. It's not just an arbitrary symbol. These 8 directions are not arbitrary. Each direction has its own magnetic and energetic property. And facing them and working with each direction has an effect on you. Now, how do I know this? Because this same 8-wheeled energetic system is found all over the world. You can find it in China. It's called the Bagua. You can find it in India. It's called the direction wheel or dig chakra. You can find it in the ancient Norse mythology. They don't give out like a wheel like we have seen in these 2 examples. But if you read the mythology, it'll tell you what each one of the 9 worlds, where they exist. And you put it together and you have the exact same thing. Now, there are different names for each direction, but the energetic quality is the same. And what that tells you is that this is a science. It is not arbitrary. It's not an idea. So, this is a tool that you can use if you want to shift your energies. And this is what a shaman is. A shaman is somebody who is able to balance and channel the energies of the cosmos. If you want to be able to do that, you have to work with the 8 directions and know what they are. You can work with the different energies that live there. You can work with the different beings that live in the 9 worlds of the world tree, which are the 8 directions plus the center. You can work with the concepts that are involved there. And every time I give an astrological reading, I will give out a mantra and a ritual. And in that ritual, I will tell you, based on your chart, which direction you need to face and which deity, which will incorporate an element and a planet. I will tell you which one of those things and create a combination just for you. And this goes back to being a powerful tool for you to shift your energy so that you can become an ascended master that much more quickly. All right, and I just got through talking about mantra and ritual. We won't go through it all. Mantra means mind vehicle. And the mind, if we want to talk about the unconscious mind, mantra is a vehicle through which the unconscious mind can shift. So you're filled with a lot of assumptions. Remember that. Your unconscious mind is filled with a lot of assumptions that you're not aware of. In order for you to become conscious and to open yourself up to all of the dimensions of reality, you have to shift your unconscious mind and become conscious of all of your assumptions. In order for that to happen, you need to get a virus program, an antivirus program to go in there into your hardware and defrag your hard drive and get rid of all of the viruses which are the incorrect assumptions. That is done with mantra. The last one I have written there is living impeccably. This goes back to being able to take action. If it hadn't, I would probably write a book if it hadn't already been written by at least a couple of people. One is Carlos Castaneda. He writes about living impeccably. Let me just tell you off the front, Carlos Castaneda was a fraud. He made it all up, or he borrowed it, or stole it. But his explanation of living impeccably and empowering and raising your energy level through taking conscious action in life, which is impeccable, doesn't mean moral. It means taking conscious, constructive action in your life. When you do that, you empower yourself energetically. You raise your vibrational level. The other one is, I think, Miguel Ruiz. But Miguel Ruiz is himself trying to pretend to be, he's actually stealing Castaneda's techniques. Castaneda, claimed to have learned this from some Native American tradition, which didn't exist. He didn't. It doesn't exist. And then Miguel Ruiz is now hijacking Castaneda's thing and pretending to be one of those people that in that fake Native American tradition, which doesn't exist. So he's a fraud as well, just based on that. But he also explains very well what it means to live impeccably. So if you want to go read those two, it's a great thing to do. If you can put it into action, it'll be very helpful. So we're going to take a short break. I'll come back to any questions. I'm sure there's a bunch of questions on there already. If you're new to the channel, if you want to get my attention, you have to write question. And then I will look at you and I will answer your question. If you just write a comment, I'm going to bypass that. I don't want that. Please only write questions. I'm not interested in your opinion or you guys talking to each other. Let's save everybody some time and just write your questions so that I can interface with you that way. So take a short break, be right back, and we'll get to some questions. All right, so let's take a look at the questions here. We've already been on for an hour, so that means I've been babbling for a long time, but let's see, we'll get to the questions. Please think through your questions. If you're new here, I see some people might be new. Please don't waste my time with your opinion. I know it's a Q&A, but that doesn't mean that I want to see you putting paragraphs of your opinion or agreeing or disagreeing with what I say. That doesn't help me. I don't care about that. Nothing personal. I want to deal with your questions. But if you're going to write a question, think about it. Think about, is this a valuable question? Or am I just throwing things out to waste time? Okay? So the first question here is Torn Legorf. Again, I don't know if you're new to the channel. If you're new, welcome. He says, question, can we create light? Can we control or shape it? So, please do not take this personally. Who cares? This video is about ending your incarnations and to changing and shifting yourself so you can become a perfected immortal, to become an ascended master. Whether or not you can create light or control or shape it is about as important as, whether or not I can figure out how to pull a rabbit out of a hat. It means nothing. It's a trick. Whether it's done energetically or sleight of hand, it's just a magic trick. It means nothing. Focus on what's important. That is not important. So to answer your question, I don't care. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about in terms of achieving your highest awareness. Again, I hope that doesn't offend you. Lucifer Apollo question. So suppressing impulse would be the key to continuing this path? Suppressing impulse is not the word that I would use. I don't believe in suppressing anything. Being able to not be controlled by your reactions, not being controlled by your impulses, being able to take conscious action regardless of what your emotional impulse may be. And the hard part is I'm telling you, you have to have your emotions, but you have to react or take action or not consciously. So I'm not just going to say suppressing impulses, but I would say it is a key to continuing in this path. He goes on to say, would say discipline and diet, passions like anger and sexual help you reach back to previous knowledge in past lives. So this isn't a moralistic thing. I'm not here to tell people what to eat or what to do or what their sexual habits are. There are some techniques which involve celibacy and things like that, but again, they're just techniques. They're just tools. There's nothing moral. There's no right or wrong, about it. So the only thing is everybody's an individual. So I would need to talk to you to find out, is diet something that we need to talk about? Is your sexual behavior getting in the way of your ability to live your highest awareness? Then we would need to talk about it. Other than that, generally speaking, those things are not necessary in and of themselves. What is necessary is to become conscious about how your actions affect you. That takes consciousness. And then there are times when you have to make decisions about what you want to do and what you don't want to do. And some of those things are going to take discipline. But in terms of suppressing things, again, I don't use that term. But anyway, I hope I answered your question. Lucifer Apollo question, would you consider shamanism to be a linear path to that of a bodhisattva? Well, again, we're just playing with names here. A bodhisattva is just another way of saying ascended master. Guiding others to greater knowledge is what all ascended masters are going to do. That is your destiny. So yes to your question. I mean, generally speaking, yes to your question. Let me see. He's got some ideas. The big difference between the two, so he knows the difference, is that a bodhisattva suppresses actual enlightenment to guide others, where perhaps the shaman's path is still achieving. Yeah, that's arbitrary. You're making an arbitrary distinction. An ascended master is somebody who's achieved it, and yes, they stand on the edge of infinity, and they turn back to help other human beings be like they are. There's no suppressing involved. I don't like that word. I don't like that. I encourage you to get rid of that verb and that thought process out of your mind. Controlling is not what this is about. And suppression, that that suggests control, and control is another way to escape. So, anyway, I wouldn't use those words. Would that include pain and painkillers? I don't know. You have to, Kailhar, you have to actually ask an entire question. That's out of context. So again, if you're going to ask a question, put effort into a subject and a verb and an object, and have it make sense, and have it be, legible, and have there be good, commas and question marks. That's not a question. So please, if you want to ask that question, put some effort into it and ask it again. All right. Okay, Emerson's Coffee Bite. Question. Just tuned in and want to know what you think of the movie Limitless. I don't remember. I vaguely remember the title, but I don't remember it, so I can't answer. And why are we fascinated with brain hacking? Because we want control. This whole modern thing about, if this is the movie about nootropics, like you take a pill, that is such nonsense. This is so Western. This is so modern Western that we have a magic pill that'll take care of it. This is the idea that the intellect runs everything, that if I can figure things out, or if I can have access to my whole brain, nonsense. Having emotional maturity, having access to all of your energy and to your mind. Your mind is not your intellect. Your mind is the part of you that is a spiritual, energetic power that your intellect. So here's external reality right here. Then you have the intellect right here. The intellect is the program in your hardware, which is your brain, which allows you to figure out all these things, and then your intellect gives your mind information. This is how your mind, which is a spiritual mind, intersects with physical reality. So the idea of nootropics, of taking a chemical which will give you access to all your brain, that is an assumption. The assumption is that if you know everything, then you can control everything. It's all nonsense. It's all based on fear. True limitlessness is not having a clue what's going to happen in the next moment, and being fully connected and fully surrendered to your infinity, and fully surrendered to what is going to happen is going to give you what you truly want. That does not entail having knowledge and being able to control everything. It comes out of fear. That is something that's a modern thing. If you go further back in time, people didn't think like that. But yeah, what you end up with is a bunch of people taking a bunch of different chemicals, some herbal, some not herbal, in order to try and control their existence, and it's not going to work. So I don't know if I'm responding to your question correctly or not, but if that's what we're talking about. Celestial Qigong, yes, to answer your last question, could Celestial Qigong, qigong.thunderwizard.com, the most powerful energy practice I know of that I can give out in public form. That is a limitless pill, so to speak. But it's because it does what I said. It empowers the mind, not the intellect. I could talk a long time about the limitations of the intellect. Anyway, I hope I answered your question. What movies can I recommend? I guess I have one. Here's one. I've recommended it before. I'll recommend it again. The Sphere. Go watch that. It was a Michael Crichton book, I think, but it was a movie. So everything that I'm talking about, knowing how to intend your reality consciously, and how we are already manifesting all of our unconsciousness. So you're already manifesting everything. You're just not aware of it. That's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to where we can be consciously aware of what we manifest. And being in control of how you respond to your emotions is the skill that gives you the ability to intend your reality. When you respond to your emotions out of reflex, out of fear, and they control you, which they do most of us, then you end up manifesting from your unconscious. And then you end up feeling like a victim. Like, I don't know what's happening. Why is this happening to me? Well, you did it. That's why. Steve Travesty, question. How do the dwarves... Okay, I don't know those dwarves by name, so I'd have to look them up. Are you talking about the north, south, east, and west dwarves? How do they work with the thunder wheel? Well, they are the directions. They're the energetic forms. I mean, you can work with the directions or you can communicate with them. So the dwarves, those dwarves are the powers of the north, south, east, and west. If they don't, I would love to know more about the wheel. Well, you can put the effort into knowing about the wheel. You can go onto my channel. And now again, some people don't know how to do this. They don't know how to search within a YouTube channel. So understand there's a difference. You can search YouTube, which will get you everything, but you have to know how to get inside somebody's channel. And if I'm using my desktop here and I go to somebody's channel, there will be next to where it says videos, there will be a little magnifying glass. You click on that and then you can search within their channel. It's different for phones and tablets and whatever, so you have to figure that out. Put the time and effort into looking in my channel and finding out, what a thunder wheel is. There's also the book, Thunder Shamanism. I have a book called Thunder Shamanism, which I believe talks about that. I have, anyway, go look on my channel. Go look on my book. And I also have DVDs. You can go to, I think it's videos.thunderwizard.com. So I every time that I take a break and all of those links that come up, all those links are going to take you to everything that I offer. Please put the time and the effort to make use of my materials. While I'm on it, if you're new to the channel and you're a new subscriber, here are some tips on how to make the most out of my channel. So put the time and the effort to take, I put a lot of man hours into creating those resources for you. So if you want to know about the Thunder Wheel, that tells me, and you're asking me, it tells me that you haven't looked on my websites to find out where you can learn more about it. You can also go to thunderwizard.com. If there's one, the reason I created thunderwizard.com is because of that. People said, I need to know step by step what to do. So I created that. You go on there, and there are, I don't know how many videos are on there that are private videos where I go in depth teaching you how to create a thunder wheel, how to do a ritual, how to work with the 5 elements, how to do qigong, how to do chanting, how to intend, all that stuff is in there. So, and it's, by the way, it's the best way to support the channel too. If you want to support my channel, go there for 25 bucks a month. You get access to all kinds of free stuff. So I recommend that. But it takes effort. Got to put the effort into it. All right, let me see. What else? Where was I last? Sorry, give me a second. See, this is why I prefer just the questions, because then I don't have to scroll through everybody's. I totally agree. I totally disagree. I don't care. I don't care. Emerson's coffee bike. Oh, no, I already answered that. All right, question. Susie Jotun's wife. Question. Are the elves and the ancestors one and in the same? Yes and no. The elves are ancestors, but they're not the ancestors. like all of the ancestors. You have, direct ancestors, you have, there's all different levels of beings. And the elves are called the light elves. There's actually the light elves, the dark elves, and I think the black elves. So elf, even though the word elf means shining one, which originally means the ascended masters, what somebody referred to as the bodhisattvas, the human consciousnesses that have achieved the highest level of awareness before who knows what happens after that, we can't comprehend it. That's what elf originally means. But it then, we're talking originally, I'm talking like tens of thousands of years ago. But over thousands of years, the term elf then started to mean any kind of nature spirit. And so you could have some negative nature spirits. Having said that, I believe that the light elves are the ones, and the mythology is very clear on this, that there are numerous heavens, and the highest of the heavens, this is where the light elves dwell. They're even higher than the gods. It's higher than Asgard. The elves are even higher than that. And I do believe that there are dark elves which work with the dwarves. I believe that the way that the dwarves and the elves work, it's exactly the way Tolkien describes in his movies and his books, is that the dwarves look to the elves for guidance. And when they are in alignment, they worship the elves. Your dwarves are your unconscious and your subconscious emotional reactions. You create them all the time. What makes you human is your dwarf nature. Physical human beings are dwarves. So if you want to know what a dwarf looks like, go look at yourself in the mirror. That's a dwarf. Okay? But we have the ability to become Mon. Mon is a dwarf that operates from the human soul. Okay? We could get into all that discussion. So the dark elves, I believe, are beings of ascension, perhaps human beings that have achieved eternal awareness and don't need to come back as human beings, and they work with the dwarves. And they operate in the darkness, because what a dwarf lives under the earth. What does that mean? Underneath the flesh. What is the earth? We're made of flesh. And underneath it in the lower center. That's where the dwarves dwell. That's where they're created. And there are dark elves, which are sort of like, assistant teachers. Like, let's say, you're in school and you've got the teacher, and the teacher is at the desk. That would be like the light elf, and the students are like the dwarves. And then you have these assistant teachers that walk around and help you with this and help you with that, but they stay in the background. That's what dark elves are like. They're elves, but they work directly with the darker aspects. So they have that's why they have kind of this sinister kind of vibe to them in terms of their name. So to answer your question, that's what I think about that. Torn Legarf question, would you address regret and its source and role in personal evolution? Regret is real simple. When you do something that you regret. So the source is you. You take action, probably. Now, sometimes you can be in regret when you don't need to be. You can be beating yourself up. But if we're talking regret, it means that you've taken an action outside of your highest awareness, out of alignment with your true soul, and you regret that action. There's usually something that has happened which was painful for you, which then caused you to regret what you did. So that's all it is. It's just, you call it karma or whatever. What is the role of regret? It makes me want to ask you so many questions. It makes me want to ask you, what have you done that you're regretting? And then it makes me want to get in there and get your ego out of the way because you're beating yourself up. Guilt and feeling guilty and feeling shameful is ego. And, it's just the flip side of how, when people think themselves king of the world, and then the flip side of that is to think you're the biggest piece of crap in the universe. And the combination of the two is when you're the most important piece of crap in the room. And that's how a lot of us are. The person that's hemming and hawing in the line in the supermarket is that. They're the most important piece of crap in the room because they can't control when they get to go to the front of the line. But they're not even aware that, oh my God, I'm in this place that's filled with all possible kinds of food, and that's not natural. It shows a lack of awareness. So the role in personal evolution, I don't know what you mean by that question. It makes me want to ask you all kinds of questions. It makes me think you got a lot of issues that I want to work with you on. So without more information, I can't really help you beyond that. Carrie Klein, question, what are you afraid of? Same things you're afraid of. Why are you asking me that? How does that help you? I'm asking this question with no disrespect. I generally want to know what you are of, what you are made of. Why? How does that help you? Are you new to the channel? Because if you're not new to the channel, then that tells me that you haven't been listening. Because I routinely reveal my fears and my foibles. There are videos, if you go back, you will see me sobbing uncontrollably. There are videos where you will see me losing my shit and cussing people out. You will see me talking about my struggles with, going after what it is I truly want. So your question tells me you haven't watched the video, which tells me get off your ass, put some effort into watching the videos. Go and read the books, read the videos. I am extremely transparent about all of that. Okay? So if you want to know that, keep watching, because at some point I will, for example, in my life, I blah, 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 and I'll do exactly what you're asking. But again, why is that so important to you? That in this moment, you need to know what I'm made of. How does that help you in this moment with what I'm teaching? That's a rhetorical question, by the way. All right. Doku 007. Question. Is achieving the samadhi state of consciousness part of your process to becoming an ascended master? Why do you ask? Do you want to achieve samadhi? For those of you who don't know what samadhi is, it's a certain type of anyway. Let me first just say that achieving samadhi is great. In and of itself, it means nothing. It's an experience and nothing more. It can be used. Here's what experiences are good for. If you can have an experience which gives you the motivation to shift your assumptions about the universe and give you the power to take conscious, fearless action, then it is worthwhile. If an experience does not give you that, then it is nothing more than just an experience. This is why I am so big on not doing chemicals, on not doing power plants or plant teachers, ayahuasca, marijuana, peyote buttons. This is why I don't recommend you do that, because Westerners don't know how to do that without getting wrapped up in the experience. First and foremost, those things crack your energy body wide open. They're extremely toxic physically. They are poisons. That's why you have an experience, because your body goes through a near-death experience. That's why when you take ayahuasca, you end up shitting and puking and you pass out, and then you have an experience. You're going through a near-death experience. You're forcing your body to do it. Now, if you know how to do that within the right context and within the right cultural framework and within the right mentality, then it can be an experience which empowers you psychologically to shift your assumptions and take actions which will then give you what it is that higher awareness or enlightenment or whatever is meant to do. But if it's just an experience, it means nothing. I have a friend of mine who, I forget what kind of chemical it is. It's something that you either snort or smoke, and then for like 30 seconds you go into another world and you come back, and You know, you can go on YouTube and watch people doing it and climbing out windows and crawling under beds, and it's really funny to watch because. But he explained that he did that, and he did it, and he saw the world fold up on him, and it scared the crap out of him. And his girlfriend, who was there, watched him as he was trying to hide under the couch, you know, thinking that the world was folding up on him. And he says to me, "But I tell you, man, I'm totally different now. It changed me." And my thought is, yeah, but your life is still shitty. I'm not saying this to him, but I'm thinking your life is still shitty, and you haven't had the ability to take action to change it. So who cares? It means nothing. Experience without being able to do something with it is meaningless. So to answer your question, is samadhi a state? I can guarantee you that if you do the practices that I teach, you will achieve that state. But I don't focus on it for the reasons that I've already just said. All right. Ooh, Kerry Klein, we lost somebody. Okay, bye, Kerry. He didn't like my answer to his question. Anyway, I'd like everybody to Google this phrase. The majority of the time, when people lose their shit on me, this is what's happening. We all do it, myself included. In fact, it is important to understand that everything in our existence, our beliefs, our judgments, our interpretations of our reality are based 100% on this psychological projection, both positive and negative. If you see yourself as a powerful being, it's because you're projecting that power onto your universe. If you see yourself as a victim, it's because you're projecting that onto your universe. And your universe is giving you exactly what you project. What we're trying to do is learn how to control, to master that projection. That's the key. If you know, and we are all in differing states of mastering that, including myself. Okay. All right, there's no more questions. We've run out of questions. Wow, we ran out of questions. All right, we'll take a break and come back, and I'll think about what else we can talk about. Let's see, where am I? Here I am. All righty, so I think there was a couple of questions here that I might have missed. Emerald Krymendal, question. Was curious if you had read the Neruda interviews or had heard of them. If so, what you had thought of them, if they were legitimate or had truth to them. So, Emerald, thank you for coming onto the channel. It looks to me like you're new to the channel. I don't answer questions about other teachers or other books. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first one is that it puts me in a position of potentially bad-mouthing or gossiping about somebody else. And I don't want to be in that position. So when you ask me about somebody else, then, you know, I could say something and I could have information or only partial information, and I might, you know, it's not helpful. Second is that it's disrespectful. It's a disrespectful thing to do, just in general. Do not go, like if you ever go to India or something like that and there's a teacher, you know, it's disrespectful to ask them about another teacher. So it's disrespectful to me, it's disrespectful to the teaching, it's also disrespectful to whomever you're asking me about. So to answer your question, I haven't heard of it, and even if I had, I probably wouldn't say anything for those reasons. The best way to get what you can from me is to ask me. So in other words, if there's a concept, let's say there's a concept in there about, you know, becoming an immortal, you know, becoming an ascended master. What you could do is ask me the question that the subject is without having to say, so-and-so says, what do you think? You could just simply ask me. I heard such and such. Is that true? What do you think of that? And that way I'm not put in the position of having to gossip about somebody else. I'm going on and on. Why? Because this is part of the consciousness that is helpful to shifting your awareness. This is part of that consciousness, which is why I bring it up. It's not a personal thing. I'm not doing it to berate you or whatever. It's just to, you know, my job is to help you. So I can't help you if you're asking me about somebody else. Let's see here. Torn Legorf, question. Where does a child's dreams come from when those dreams consist of symbology like a white pyramid, old forgotten doors to knowledge, and a strange lizard that eats itself? So you're not asking me a general question. You're asking me about somebody's specific dream. In order to answer that, I'd need to ask you all kinds of questions, because those symbols might mean different things to different people. Okay, so I can't answer that for you. That's like something to do in a private session. But thank you for the question. Evan Price, question. Is there any connection between the name Tyr and the word tyrant? No, not to my knowledge. Okay, so I want to talk to you now, because we're out of questions right now. I want to talk to you about the practice of becoming a perfected immortal. And why, you know, now I've talked about the two ways to become a perfected immortal. And I'm going to be teaching a method here coming up soon. I'm in the process of putting it together, and I'm going to start ramping that process up now that I've moved and I'm in the new place and all that. I'm going to start moving in a stronger direction towards that. This is a practice that I am calling holding the 3 ones. The 3 ones are the 3 centers in your body. If you notice in this picture here, right, this is I got it off the internet, but it's perfect. It's a picture of what I believe an ascended master does. You'll notice that the being in that picture, the 3 centers are lit up, and they're orbiting the earth, and they are projecting through their hands, they're projecting another earth. What's happening, the way I interpret that, is that this is a perfected immortal who's using the higher self, the lower self, and the middle self in conjunction. That all 3 of the centers are empowered and aligned. With that, this person has the ability to intend what they believe to be the perfect earth is. So they are, with their intention, they're raising the vibration of the actual earth that is below them. That's what I see when I look at that. So there's a practice that the Taoists use. Remember, I talked about the guys who would bury themselves until they, started to rot, and then they would resurrect themselves, and then they would have all these new powers and all this kind of stuff. One of the things they practiced was called the method of holding the three ones. And I practiced this years ago when I was doing Taoist mysticism. And there was a book out there, and I did all the stuff in the book, and the this and the that and all that. And I stopped doing it because I was getting too confused by all of the Chinese symbology. I couldn't get my intellect out of that and get into the practice. But I started simplifying it, and I started doing it just going through the techniques in a simple way, and it had a really profound effect on. I wish I could explain it. It just sort of like everything sort of crystallizes. I mean, you sometimes have experiences and you go out of the body and all that great stuff that we're all looking for. We all want to have that experience. But again, those are just experiences. What matters is what you can do in this life. That's what matters. And in my experience, when I was doing this technique and when I do that technique, there's this feeling of clarity that comes over me and comes over my experience with the universe and the life force energy that surrounds it. And it gives me an experience of being able to intend my reality and to have control over that, which is what I think that Ascended Master is doing. So what I'm going to be doing, it's going to be, I believe, a video course. And I'm going to be going into all of the ways. I mean, I've been talking at them and around them through all of this teaching, but now I'm going to get into very specific methods to open up all of these three centers and to align them. And then to be able to take it to that next step. Doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight. It may take years and years and years of discipline. But everything I'm teaching, the thunderwizard.com site, and everything else that I talk about, all of the qigong, the celestial qigong, all that stuff is giving you the basis so that you can be attuned to be able to do this fairly simple technique and then have it do something. Because if you're not aligned and you're not attuned, I'm not going to say it won't work. I'm just, there's a likelihood you won't be as effective. So we need to clean out the lower self, and we need to have a clear understanding of our connection and who we are and all that kind of stuff. And that's what all of this channel and all of my books and everything is about. All of that is about. So if you want to be informed on that, you can, let's see. I believe, info@thundershamanism.com. You can email me there and just put in the subject line, just put 3 ones. Okay, if you just put that in the subject line, then I'll put you in a little folder, and when it's time to roll that out, I will let you know. But not a big deal. I'm gonna, as I roll it out, I'm gonna be talking about it more and more. So anyway, there's that. I don't see any more questions here, guys. I think we've run out of questions. We're about an hour 45. I can't think of anything else that I need to talk about. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut things down for the evening. Yep. Can't think of anything else at the time being, so I think I'm going to shut things down. This is your last chance. I'll give a few seconds here if somebody has a question that they need to ask about, about anything. I'll go ahead. Let me see. I'll scroll through and see if there's any questions that I missed, because sometimes I miss them. I don't think I missed any questions. All right, I don't see any questions here, so I'm going to let us go. All right, that's it for me, my friends. We'll see. Maybe I'll show up tomorrow, and we'll have another whatever, another session. All right, that's it. Thank you. See you soon.